Okay.
Okay, I'm going to do some two-voice practice. This is from our double murder case, and I will be the question. And we'll estimate about 140, 150.
Okay.
Begins with a question for the record. Please take the stand, state your full name, and spell your last name for the record, please.
John W. Isley, E-I-S-E-L-E.
Where are you employed, sir?
I'm employed by Delta Pathology Associates. They contract my services to the San Joaquin County, Stanislaus County Coroner's offices.
So you are a doctor?
Yes.
And did you perform an autopsy in this case on Demetrius Selman and James Dudier?
Yes, I did.
On what date did you perform the autopsies?
April 3rd of 2004.
And then based upon the autopsies, did you form an opinion regarding the cause of death?
Yes, I did.
Could you briefly explain to us your education, training, and experience that qualifies you to perform an autopsy upon somebody and then to come into court and tell us the cause of death?
I received a bachelor's degree in Haverford College in Pennsylvania, my MD degree in Case Western, Cleveland, Ohio, and a master's degree in pathology, University of Washington in Seattle. I did a year of pathology internship at the University Hospital in Seattle, 2 years of pathology residency at the University Hospital in Cleveland, and a year of forensic pathology and fellowship at the coroner's office in Cleveland. After I finished my training, I spent 2 years at Indiana University Medical School in Indiana. I was on the faculty there, doing most of my service work for the coroners there. I went to Seattle. I was a deputy medical examiner in the medical examiner's office and also had a faculty appointment at the University of Washington. I was there for 7 years. I went to San Diego, where I was initially the pathologist for the coroner, then a deputy medical examiner when the office changed to the medical examiner's office. And also, I had a faculty appointment at UCSD University.
Speak into the microphone.
Let's see, in 1996, I retired from San Diego County, spent about 5 years, 1997 I retired, spent about 4 years doing private consulting and part-time work for a couple of the coroners in that area. And then since 2001, I've been working part-time for Delta Pathology, doing autopsies for those 2 coroners' offices here.
So approximately how many autopsies have you done in your career, if you can put a number on them?
At the end of last year, it was a little over 9,700.
And you've qualified as an expert in courts of law before?
Yes, I have.
And you've been testifying for how many years? 20, 30?
27.
Well, you said on the 3rd of, when you performed the autopsy of Demetrius Selman, who else was present when you did that autopsy?
There was a detective from Stockton Police Department. I believe it was J.J. Reyes.
Did you write a report about your autopsy in this case?
Yes, I did.
Do you have a copy of it with you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Let's start with the autopsy upon Demetrius Selman. I'll ask you some questions about him, okay?
Okay.
And basically, can you start out by telling us what were his size, his weight?
He was 70 inches tall, or 5 feet 10 inches tall.
5 feet 8?
5 feet 10, weighed 145 pounds.
And did you do an external examination of the body?
Yes, I did.
And you did do an internal examination of the body?
Yes, I did.
With regard to the external examination of the body, showing you people's, was there someone showing you people's one? Does this appear to be the person that you knew as Demetrius Selman?
Yes, it does.
Were there tattoos on him?
Yes.
Did you make a note of what they said to link it up to this photograph?
I'll have to look at my report.
Would that refresh your memory?
Yes.
On his chest, was there a tattoo?
Yeah, on the right chest, right pectoral region, a tattoo said, "In loving memory of Bryant Orland, 1968 to 1989." Across the base of the neck. I'm sorry.
Was there a tattoo that said, "Beloved son, Demetrius Jr."? Do you have your report, page 2?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes, there was a tattoo, pectoral region, said, "My beloved son, Demetrius Jr."
Does that photograph appear to be that person, People's One, that you had identified as Demetrius Spellman?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Now, was there someone at the autopsy taking photographs?
Yes, Brian McGinnis of the Stockton Police Department was taking photographs.
Did you draw a sketch of the injuries that you saw on the body of Demetrius Spellman?
Yes, I did.
May I have marked as People's Next in order number 112, which was preliminary hearing exhibit 11?
If you want, I have a little bit more legible copies I made of those.
Excuse me, do you have one for Demetrius Spellman?
Yeah.
Okay, let me have that one marked as 112. Showing you People's 112, do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, it's actually a copy of a diagram that I made during the time of the autopsy. I just redid it so it's, as I say, a little more legible.
Do you have the laser pointer in front of you there?
Yeah.
Did you see some evidence of some shotgun wounds? Yes or no? Excuse me, some gun wounds.
Gunshot wounds, yes.
Gun wounds?
Did you give numbers to the various?
Did you give numbers to the various injuries that you saw? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Can you use that numbering system and go through them one by one now?
Yes.
When you use this number, just to make it clear, are you ascribing any chronological order that the injuries were received?
No, they're just numbers I put on there to organize the wounds, organize the report.
So when you talk about injury number 1, that does not necessarily mean Mr. Spellman received that as the first gunshot wound. Is that right?
That's correct.
And number 3 doesn't mean it's the first or last?
Correct.
Okay. Let's start with number 1. Where did you see an injury on him that you marked as number 1?
Number 1 was on the left upper arm over the bicep. There was an entrance wound.
Have you drawn it in on People's 112?
Yes.
And where have you drawn it in?
There's an entrance wound on the outside of the left bicep.
And what does
that indicated N1. N is what I use for entrance. X is for exit. R for recovery. So the entrance wound is on the outside of the left upper arm, and the exit wound is on the inside of the arm.
Showing you photograph number 2, can you make out from there what is shown in this photograph?
Yes, this is a photograph taken of the upper arm of Mr. Spellman. And again, it shows the entrance wound on the right of the photograph, exit wound on the left.
How can you tell the difference between entrance and exit?
Entrance wounds, typically the bullet, the nose of the bullet is pushing into the skin before it breaks through the skin, and then the skin scrapes back along the edges of the bullet. So you see a circular rim of abrasion or scraping around the edge of the exit wound. The edge of the entrance wound.
Can you tell about this injury number 1 to the left bicep, what direction it went?
It was going from left to right. With the arm at the side, it was going from his left to his right. And with him in an erect position, it would have been going slightly upward.
And was anything recovered in connection with that injury?
No.
All right. Moving on to wound number 2, show us on the exhibit 112 where the next injury was, or the one that you numbered 2.
The entrance wound was on the left side of the chest, sort of in the front part of the axillary. Again, it's indicated here as N2.
Was there an exit wound associated with that one?
There was not an exit wound. I did recover a missile, a bullet.
Did you indicate where you recovered it on People's 112?
Yes, it's indicated as R2 on the right side of the chest.
Showing you People's photograph number 3. Can you see the tattoo with the word Demetrius?
Yes.
What is shown in this photograph?
It's the right side of the chest. He was in the hospital before he came to the coroner's office, and there were 2. What it's showing is 2 incisions that were made in the hospital.
Okay, that does not show any of the entrance or recovery sites.
No, the entrance is on the other side, and the recovery site is not visible in this photograph. It was under the skin.
Okay, all right. So as far as this one number, this entrance number 2 and recovery number 2, what path did the bullet go through as it went through the body from N2 to R2?
It went into the left chest, right between the 5th and 6th ribs, went through the lower lobe of the left lung, went across the center of the chest, and went across the front of the heart. Then it continued into the right chest, went through the right lung, went between the 6th and 7th ribs, and then stopped just beneath the skin.
So it went through those vital organs?
Went through both lungs and the heart.
Okay. And when that bullet was recovered, what did you end up doing with it?
I gave it to Mr. McGinnis.
Okay. And Mr. Reyes was there as well?
Yes.
All right. Moving on to your next one, number 3. Can you tell us where injury number 3 was?
Okay. Number 3 was in the left side of the back, as indicated on the diagram.
So he was shot in the back?
Yes, the entrance wound is in the back, yeah.
People's 4, can you tell us, do you recognize what is shown in this photograph?
It's a photograph of the back taken during the autopsy and specifically shows that entrance wound I just described.
Right here?
That's correct.
By the way, whose hand is in the photograph?
I'm not sure. Probably is Mr. McGinnis. Might be my hand, although
What is the purpose of the card that's in the photograph?
It's to identify the photograph and also to put a scale in, a ruler to measure
Measure what?
To measure what is in the photograph. In this case, the gunshot wound.
Okay. So this injury, which you've labeled number 3, that went in the back, was there any recovery of that? Any bullet associated with number 3?
Not by me. Basically, I followed the path of the bullet and it ended over on the right side where there was incisions from the hospital.
Okay, pardon me for the interruption. We heard some evidence that actually there were bullets taken from Mr. Silman's body at the hospital. Did you see evidence of that when you did the autopsy?
Yes. As I say, I saw a bullet track that ended in a surgical incision at that point.
People's 3 that I showed you earlier, does that show anything associated with the recovery of the bullet from injury number 3?
Yes, the larger incision down by the bottom of the rib cage would be where that bullet was recovered.
Okay, so this bullet that went in the back, what did it go through? What was its path?
It went through the musculature of the back, went across the vertebral column, severed the spinal cord. It went through the inferior vena cava, which is a large vein that carries blood from the bottom part of the body back to the heart. Went through the right lobe of the liver, and then exited through the body wall, through the abdominal wall.
Did it go through the spinal cord?
Yes.
So if I'm counting right, went through 3 vital organs, the heart, the liver, and the spinal cord?
No, the spinal cord, inferior vena cava, and the liver.
Excuse me, okay. Went through the large vein that carries the blood to the heart, perforated the liver, and it struck the spinal cord?
That's correct.
Did it ever sever the spinal cord?
Yes.
When a spinal cord is severed, what happens to your ability to walk or stand or run or do anything?
Basically, you're immediately paralyzed below that level, below the level of the transection. So your ability to walk or run or stand is gone. You collapse.
So that was number 3, which you labeled number 3 on Exhibit 112. Was there a 4th gunshot wound that you saw?
Yes, there was.
Where is that on your Exhibit 112?
Again, the entrance wound is on the left buttock, indicated by N4.
Showing you People's Exhibit 5. Recognize what is shown in this photograph?
Yes, this is a photograph of Mr. Silman's buttock taken during the autopsy.
Does it show the entrance wound that you have labeled N4? And if so, could you point to it?
Yes, it does.
With the laser.
I believe it's over here, sort of in the center of the left buttock.
Could you circle it? Could you show us one more time?
Yes.
Has it been circled now?
Yes.
In the photograph that has been marked as People's 5? Okay. And that bullet that entered through that left buttock, what path did it take?
It went through the soft tissue at the base of the pelvis, base of the pelvic cavity, without actually striking any bone or any major vessels or other structures.
Was it recovered?
It was not. It exited from the body.
And where did you draw in where it exited on this Exhibit 112?
Yes, it's on the right side, sort of at the junction of the leg and abdomen.
X4?
X4.
Entrance 4, exit 4.
Correct.
Yes?
It
went clear through the body?
Yes.
If I'm following?
Yes.
Okay. And number 5?
Number 5 was in the right arm. The entrance wound was on the front of the arm, the palm side of the arm, and the exit wound was on the back of the arm.
Did you draw in the exit wound?
Yes, I did. It's on the back of the right arm.
Okay. So we have entrance 5, exit 5, correct?
Correct.
Now, we heard a witness say that he saw a person actually hold his arm. My question is, would there be any pain associated with this type of injury?
Yes, there would.
Showing you People's 6, do you recognize what is shown in this photograph?
Yes, this is a photograph of, again, the front of the forearm, and it shows that entrance wound.
The entrance or the exit? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's the entrance wound.
Okay. We can see for reference the armpit right here, right?
Correct.
Am I correct there?
Yeah.
Okay. So this particular photograph number 6 shows the entrance wound that you labeled number 5, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that bullet went straight through, did it?
Yes, it did.
And exited at number 5?
Correct.
And what about injury number 6?
6 was on the right foot. Again, it was a perforating wound that went in and out. The entrance was on the front of the ankle. The exit was on the top of the foot.
People's 7, does that show what you're describing? Is that of Demetrius Silman?
It shows the entrance wound here on the right ankle, and it also shows the exit wound here, more toward the side of his foot.
If you can answer this question, I don't know if it will take a podiatrist or general knowledge, but if you get shot like that, would you be able to walk or run or use your feet?
This did not break any bones. I didn't specifically look. It may have cut some of the tendons that would lift the foot up, so you might have difficulty walking. I don't think it would be impossible.
Was a bullet recovered in association with this injury number 6?
No, it exited.
All right. Now, it's a total of how many gunshot wounds did you see then to the body of Demetrius Silman?
Total of 6.
And you've numbered them on People's 112, 1 through 6?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, what is this? If I'm looking at it correctly, is this a number here?
It is. At the time I did the autopsy, I gave it was just an incision, and I wasn't sure what the significance of it was, so I gave it number 7. Turns out it was an incision made in the hospital where they recovered a missile.
Was that the one shown in People's 3?
It's the lower one, yes.
Okay. So we don't count that as a bullet wound, correct?
Correct. The wound is from the hospital.
May we have the lights on, please? So what is your opinion regarding the cause of death to Demetrius Silman based upon your conducting the autopsy upon him?
The cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds.
What was the mechanism of death?
probably blood loss, particularly from wounds 2 and 3, and also the transection of the spinal cord.
So the most serious ones would be 2 and 3.
Yes,
Those would be what? Fatal shots?
those would be fatal by themselves. The other wounds obviously contributed to the blood loss, but were not by themselves fatal.
In other words, if someone got shot in the foot, where you have number 6, and got to the hospital right away, they would most likely live unless they lost a lot of blood.
That's correct.
And likewise, the one to the arm, number 5, by itself wouldn't be fatal,
That's correct.
but together with the others contributed to blood loss in this case.
Yes.
Okay. So if I'm following you, there was 2 that were in and of themselves fatal, number 2 and number 3.
That's correct.
Okay. Were you able to tell how close to Mr. Demetrius Silman the gun or guns were that caused these injuries to him?
Not specifically. What we would look at would be deposition of gunpowder residue on the skin. What I'm trying to remember, I don't believe there was any clothing on.
Well, can you give us a range? In other words, were they, for example, were they contact wounds where a person puts the gun up to them and shoots them?
No, there was no evidence they were contact wounds.
Were they, 5 feet away?
Could have been 5 feet away.
Could they have been 20 feet away?
Could have been 20 feet away.
So no way to narrow it down. Say this one was 7 feet, this one 18, nothing like that.
No, once it gets out beyond a foot or 2, you can't tell how far away the gun was.
Can you say what position the victim was in, Demetrius Silman was in at the time he got the shots?
No, I can't.
Well, the one in the back, is it fair to say that his back was to the gun?
His back was toward the gun, yeah, but
Other than that,
he could have been lying on the ground for all I know.
for all you know, he's on the ground and got shot on the ground,
Yes,
or standing, running, whatever.
that's correct.
Can't really tell, is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you give the bullets that were recovered to McGinnis or Reyes?
Yes, I believe to McGinnis.
Okay. By the way, did you see any evidence of injuries consistent with someone collapsing, maybe as they're falling to the ground after getting shot?
Yes, he had some small scrapes on his kneecaps, which would be
Pardon me for interrupting you. Did you finish?
consistent with falling to the ground.
Those you didn't draw in, right?
I didn't put those on this diagram, no.
They would be where if you could draw them in with the laser.
Again, right over the kneecaps on both sides.
Okay, consistent with like abrasions?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to the second autopsy that you performed upon James Dudier, or the second one I'm going to discuss. Did you also draw a diagram of his injuries?
Yes, I did.
You have that diagram with you.
Yes, well, yeah.
Remember which autopsy was done first, by the way?
I believe Mr. Silman was. I'm trying to find the times. He was started about 12:15.
Because we're running out of time, I'll withdraw the question. It's not important for me to ask you that right now.
Okay.
Let me show you photograph number 10, and I think we'll need the lights off for this, Mr. Kamagaki, I'm sure. Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes, this appears to be a photograph of Mr. Dudier.
I'm sorry.
Is it Dudier?
Dudier,
Dudier.
whatever. D-U-Y-T-E.
Correct.
Okay, this is some two-voice practice at 160 words a minute. It begins with a question for the record. And what's your job there?
Work standards development.
And how long have you been at CAT?
11 years.
Directing your attention to May 5, 1978, there was a golf outing scheduled for that weekend. Mr. Park, I'm going to ask you some questions about an automobile collision that occurred on or about May 5, 1978. Do you recall that particular incident?
Parts of it.
Okay, if you don't understand my questions that I ask you, let me know, and I'll be glad to rephrase them. I am not going to try to confuse you. Please state your name and your address.
Lewis Park, 1936, Canterbury, Washington, Illinois.
And how long have you lived at that address?
Since September.
And are you married?
No.
Do you live at that address with anyone else?
No, I don't.
Who's your present employer?
Cat.
And do you remember where the golf outing was scheduled for?
What it was for?
Where was it scheduled?
It was in Monticello, the Canaway Country Club.
Okay, and you made some plans to go to the outing with Kenny Dotson?
That's correct.
Do you remember what time that day you got together to leave for Monticello?
Around 2:30.
And how do you remember that time?
Just that I left work later on, after the morning and had lunch.
Okay, where did you meet at 2:30?
At his trailer.
You met Mr. Dotson at his trailer in East Peoria?
Correct.
Did either one of you have anything to drink at the trailer?
No, not that I remember.
Had you had anything to drink before your meeting with him at his trailer that afternoon?
Yes, we had lunch at the Wine Rack, Paradise Wine Rack.
Okay, and where was that located?
In East Peoria.
And do you remember what you had for lunch?
No, I don't.
And do you recall what each of you had to drink at lunch?
I'm not sure, but 1 or 2 scotch and waters.
Yes, you had.
I know that's what I had.
You hadn't had anything prior to lunch on that morning to drink?
No.
Okay. Did you take any alcohol in the vehicle with you on the trip to Monticello?
We stopped, yes.
And where did you stop?
I think at the Convenient in Sunnyland.
Convenient?
Yes, Convenient.
Was that both of your ideas?
No.
Do you remember whose idea?
I'm not certain.
Okay. Do you remember who paid for it?
Mr. Dotson.
And what kind of alcohol was that?
Scotch.
And did you both consume scotch on the way to Monticello?
Yes.
Do you remember the amount you consumed?
No.
Was it a fifth you had picked up?
I'm not sure. I am pretty sure it was.
Okay. How far is it from Peoria to Monticello?
Approximately 170 miles.
And no one else rode with you two, is that correct?
Yes.
Was it your vehicle that was being driven?
Yes.
What kind of a car was it?
It was a 1975 Grand Prix.
Was it in good operating condition?
Yes.
You left for Monticello about 2:30?
Yes.
About what time did you arrive in Monticello?
About 8 or so, 8:30.
Okay, and did you make any more stops from Washington to town?
Yes, for gas.
Fine.
I can't recall, exactly where.
Okay, when you arrived at Monticello, you checked into a motel?
We went to the country club.
Okay, when did you check into the motel?
Well, when we went that evening.
Did you go into the room?
We had a key given to us, I remember.
Okay. You went directly to the country club when you got into town, right then?
Correct.
That was approximately 7 or 7:30?
Right.
How did you feel when you got there?
All right.
You didn't feel that you had any effects from whatever alcoholic beverages you had?
I'm not sure.
First of all, did you feel intoxicated?
No.
Did you notice anything about yourself that would indicate any effects from the alcohol?
No.
And that was true at, say, 6 or 6:30?
Right.
And did you note anything about Mr. Dotson that would indicate the effects from the alcohol at that time?
Not that I can recall.
Do you know if you ate dinner when you arrived?
Yes.
And who did you eat dinner with?
Mr. Dotson.
Is there anyone else that you ate dinner with?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember what you ate for dinner?
I remember having steak. I had a steak.
And did you have anything to drink with your dinner?
I believe, yes. I recall I did have at least one alcoholic beverage.
Okay. And what would that have been? Scotch and water?
Yes.
And approximately when did you finish eating?
I don't remember.
I know it's been a long while back.
I'm not sure. But I would say we finished by 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Okay. Then what did you do following dinner?
We went into the bar.
And did you meet anyone there from the Peoria area?
Yes.
And who was there?
What I remember, Larry Davis and Al Lavin.
And did you spend some time then with them?
Yes.
Do you remember what, if anything, you drank over the course of the rest of the evening prior to leaving the club?
No, I can't remember.
You probably had a couple of drinks.
I'm not certain, but I would say probably.